significant Muslim centers. The region of Samaria also underwent a process of Islamization as a result of waves of conversion among the Samaritan population and the influx of Muslims into the area. 165, 167. The predominantly Jacobite Monophysitic Christian population had been hostile to Byzantium orthodoxy, and at times for that reason welcomed Muslim rule. There is no strong evidence for forced conversion, or for possibility that the jizya tax significantly affected such changes. 169. The demographic situation in Palestine was further altered by urban decline under the Abbasids, and it is thought that the 749 earthquake hastened this process by causing an increase in the number of Jews, Christians, and Samaritans who emigrated to diaspora communities while also leaving behind others who remained in the devastated cities and poor villages until they converted to Islam. 134. Historical records and archaeological evidence suggest that many Samaritans converted under Abbasid and Tulunid rule, after suffering through severe difficulties such droughts, earthquakes, religious persecution, heavy taxes and anarchy. 167. The same region also saw the settlement of Arabs. Over the period, the Samaritan population drastically decreased, with the rural Samaritan population converting to Islam, and small urban communities remaining in Nablus and Caesarea, as well as in Cairo, Damascus, Aleppo and Sarepta. 170. Nevertheless, the Muslim population remained a minority in a predominantly Christian area, and it is likely that this status persisted until the Crusader period. 134. Crusades and Mongols. Painting of the Siege of Jerusalem during the First Crusade, 1099. In 1095, Pope Urban II called upon Christians to wage a holy war and recapture Jerusalem from Muslim rule. Responding to this call, Christians launched the First Crusade in the same year, a military campaign aimed at retaking the Holy Land, ultimately resulting in the successful siege and conquest of Jerusalem in 1099. 171. In the same year, the Crusaders conquered Beit Shean and Tiberias, and in the following decade, they captured coastal cities with the support of Italian city-state fleets, establishing these coastal ports as crucial strongholds for Crusader rule in the region. 172. Following the First Crusade, several Crusader states were established in the Levant, with the Kingdom of Jerusalem, Regnum Hierosolomitanum, assuming a preeminent position and enjoying special status among the The population consisted predominantly of Muslims, Christians, Jews, and Samaritans, while the Crusaders remained a minority and relied on the local population who worked the soil. The region saw the construction of numerous robust castles and fortresses, yet efforts to establish permanent European villages proved unsuccessful. 172. Around 1180, Reynold of Chatelan, ruler of Transjordan, caused increasing conflict with the Ayyubid Sultan Saladin, leading to the defeat of the Crusaders in the 1187 Battle of Hattin, above Tiberias. Saladin was able to peacefully take Jerusalem and conquered most of the former Kingdom of Jerusalem. Saladin's court physician was Maimonides, a refugee from Almohad, Muslim. Persecution in Córdoba, Spain, where all non-Muslim religions had been banned. 173. The Christian world's response to the loss of Jerusalem came in the Third Crusade of 1190. After lengthy battles and negotiations, Richard the Leonheart and Saladin concluded the Treaty of Jaffa in 1192, whereby Christians were granted free passage to make pilgrimages to the holy sites, while Jerusalem remained under Muslim rule. 174. In 1229, Jerusalem peacefully reverted into Christian control as part of a treaty between Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II and Ayyubid Sultan Al-Kamil that ended the Sixth Crusade. 175. In 1244, Jerusalem was sacked by the Khwarezmian Tatars who decimated the city's Christian population, drove out the Jews and razed the city. 176. The Khwarezmians were driven out by the Ayyubids in 1247. Mamluk period. Between 1258 and 1291, the area was the frontier between Mongol invaders, occasional Crusader allies, and the Mamluks of Egypt. The conflict impoverished the country and severely reduced the population. In Egypt, a caste of warrior slaves, known as the Mamluks, gradually took control of kingdom. The Mamluks were mostly of Turkish origin, and were bought as children and then trained in warfare. They were highly prized warriors who gave rulers independence of the native aristocracy. In Egypt they took control of the kingdom following a failed invasion by the Crusaders. The Bahrai Mamluk dynasty 1250–1382, 7th Crusade. The first Mamluk Sultan, Qutuz of Egypt, defeated the Mongols in the Battle of Ain Jalut, Goliath's spring near Ain Harod, ending the Mongol advances. He was assassinated by one of his generals, Baybars, who went on to eliminate most of the Crusader outposts. The Mamluks ruled Palestine until 1516, regarding it as part of Syria. In Hebron, Jews were banned from worshipping at the Cave of the Patriarchs, the second holiest site in Judaism. They were only allowed to enter 7 steps inside the site. 177, and the ban remained in place until Israel assumed control of the West Bank in the 6 Days War. 178. The Egyptian Mamluk Sultan Al-Ashraf Khalil conquered the last outpost of Crusader rule in 1291. The Mamluks, continuing the policy of the Ayyubids, made the strategic decision to destroy the coastal area and to bring desolation to many of its cities, from Tyre in the north to Gaza in the south. Ports were destroyed and various materials were dumped to make them inoperable. The goal was to prevent attacks from the sea given the fear of the return of the Crusaders. This had a long-term effect on those areas, which remained sparsely populated for centuries. The activity in that time concentrated more inland. 179, with the 1492 expulsion of Jews from Spain and 1497 persecution of Jews and Muslims by Manuel I of Portugal, many Jews moved eastward, with some deciding to settle in the Mamluk Palestine. As a consequence, the local Jewish community underwent significant rejuvenation. The influx of Sephardic Jews began under Mamluk rule in the 15th century, and continued throughout the 16th century and especially after the Ottoman conquest. As city dwellers, the majority of Sephardic Jews preferred to settle in urban areas, mainly in Safed but also in Jerusalem, while the Muster Arba community comprised the majority of the villagers' Jews. 180, Ottoman period. Under the Mamluks, the area was a province of Bilad Sham, Syria. It was conquered by Turkish Sultan Selim I in 1516–17, becoming a part of the province of Ottoman Syria for the next 4 centuries, first as the Damascus Yali and later as the Syria Vilayet, following the Tanzimat organization of 1864. Old Yusuf. 16th century Safed Rabbi Joseph Karo, author of the Jewish law book with the more favorable conditions that followed the Ottoman conquest, the immigration of Jews fleeing Catholic Europe, which had already begun under Mamluk rule, continued, and soon an influx of exiled Sephardic Jews came to dominate the Jewish community in the area. 180, in 1558, Selim II, 1566, 1574, successor to Suleiman, whose wife Nurban Sultan was Jewish, 181, gave control of Tiberias to Dona Gracia Mendez Nazi, one of the richest women in Europe and an escapee from the Inquisition. She encouraged Jewish refugees to settle in the area and established a Hebrew printing press. Safed became a center for study of the Kabbalah. Dona Nazi's nephew, Joseph Nazi, was made governor of Tiberias and he encouraged Jewish settlement from Italy. 182. In 1660, a Druze power struggle led to the destruction of Safed and Tiberias. 183, 184. In the late 18th century, a local Arab Sheikh Zahir al-Umar created a de facto independent emirate in the Galilee. Ottoman attempts to subdue the Sheikh failed, but after Zahir's death the Ottomans restored their rule in the area. 185. In 1799, Napoleon briefly occupied the country and planned a proclamation inviting Jews to create a state. The proclamation was shelved following his defeat at Acre. 186. In 1831, Muhammad Ali of Egypt, an Ottoman ruler who left the empire and tried to modernize Egypt, conquered Ottoman Syria and imposed conscription, leading to the Arab Revolt. 187. Jewish workers in Kerem Avraham neighborhood of Jerusalem, c. 1850s. In 1838, there was another Druze revolt. In 1839 Moses Montefiore met with Mohammed Pasha in Egypt and signed an agreement to establish 200 Jewish villages in the Damascus Valley of Ottoman Syria. 188. But in 1840 the Egyptians withdrew before the deal was implemented, returning the area to Ottoman governorship. In 1844, Jews constituted the largest population group in Jerusalem. By 1896 Jews constituted an absolute majority in Jerusalem, 189, but the overall population in Palestine was 88% Muslim and 9% Christian. 190. Birth of Zionism. Between 1882 and 1903, approximately 35,000 Jews moved to Palestine, known as the First Aliyah. 191. In the Russian Empire, Jews faced growing persecution and legal restrictions. Half the world's Jews lived in the Russian Empire, where they were restricted to living in the Pale of Settlement. Severe pogroms in the early 1880s and legal repression led to 2 million Jews emigrating from the Russian Empire. 1.5 million went to the United States. Popular destinations were also Germany, France, England, Holland, Argentina and Palestine. 192, 193, Russian Jews established the Bilu and Hovir Zion, lovers of Zion, movements with the aim of settling in Palestine. In 1878, Russian Jewish migrants established the village of Petah Tikva, the beginning of hope, followed by Rishon LeZion, first to Zion, in 1882. The existing Ashkenazi Jewish communities were concentrated in the 4 holy cities, extremely poor and relied on donations, halakha, from groups abroad, while the new settlements were small farming communities, but still relied on funding by the French Baron, Edmond James de Rothschild, who sought to establish profitable enterprises. Many early migrants could not find work and left, but despite the problems, more settlements arose and the community grew. After the Ottoman conquest of Yemen in 1881, a large number of Yemenite Jews also emigrated to Palestine, often driven by Messianism. 194. In 1896 Theodor Herz published Der Judenstaat, the Jewish state, in which he asserted that the solution to growing antisemitism in Europe, the so-called Jewish question, was to establish a Jewish state. In 1897, the World Zionist Organization was founded and the First Zionist Congress proclaimed its aim to establish a home for the Jewish people in Palestine secured under public law. 195. The Congress chose Hatikva, the Hope, as its anthem. Between 1904 and 1914, around 40,000 Jews settled in the area now known as Israel, the Second Aliyah. In 1908 the World Zionist Organization set up the Palestine Bureau, also known as the Eretz Israel Office, in Jaffa and began to adopt a systematic Jewish settlement policy. 196. In 1909 residents of Jaffa bought land outside the city walls and built the first entirely